Hi there and welcome to my channel Future Prepared with me, Tom Cunningham. I am a principal designer. I've been working in the industry for 15 plus years. I talk about UX, career, design thinking, things like that. In this video, I'll be talking about leading as an individual contributor. When people think about leadership, they usually think about management, owning a team, making decisions, and directing execution. But leadership isn't about titles. It's about influence, impact, and the ability to shape outcomes. As an individual contributor, you can lead in a way that shifts thinking, aligns teams, and drives meaningful change. The challenge is that you don't have direct authority. You can't just tell people what to do. Instead, you lead through clarity, influence, and strategic framing. So how do you actually do that? Well, one of the most effective ways to lead as an IC is bringing clarity to complex problems. Large organizations are full of ambiguity, different teams operating in silos, competing priorities, and structural inefficiencies that make alignment difficult. A huge part of IC leadership is cutting through that noise, defining what actually matters, and making it understandable. For me, this means taking complex, abstract challenges and breaking them down into digestible narratives. Through a well-structured diagram, a concise document, or a short video walkthrough. The more clearly you articulate a problem, the easier it becomes for others to align on a solution. But clarity isn't just about communication. It's about framing a problem in a way that makes it feel obvious, urgent, and valuable to the right stakeholders. Many good ideas fail because they weren't framed in a way that connects with business priorities. So leadership, as an IC, starts with owning clarity. If you can make the complex simple, you immediately stand out. As an individual contributor, you don't have direct reports to execute your ideas. Instead, your influence comes from the strength of your thinking and how well you communicate it. Artifacts like diagrams, documents, videos, and frameworks are a force multiplier. A 4-minute video can scale across teams, ensuring that even people you never directly interact with can understand and align with your thinking. The key is adjusting fidelity based on where the idea is. If it's an early stage idea, use low fidelity sketches or rough concepts to invite feedback. If it's at the mid stage, use structured artifacts to crystallize a direction and align teams. If it's towards the later stage, use polished artifacts to drive execution and buy-in. This balance of clarity and accessibility makes a huge difference. If your work is easy to engage with, people are more likely to adopt and execute on it. Another part of IC leadership is knowing when to zoom in and when to zoom out. At the 10,000 feet level, leadership means setting direction, identifying systemic issues, connecting the dots between different teams, and aligning workflows. At the 100-foot level, it's about tactical execution, getting the details right, ensuring things don't get lost in translation, and making sure strategic thinking translates into actual impact. The best IC leaders can move fluidly between these levels. They don't just think about screens or workflows, they think about how everything fits together. This ability to shift perspectives helps break down silos. It connects senior leadership priorities with execution teams' realities. It ensures that work at all levels is aligned towards the same goal. So let's talk about balancing the fidelity to enable execution. This is something I think about a lot. When working on systems level problems, I'm often defining the opportunity, but I'm not always the expert in how it gets executed. So I have to strike a balance. I need to give teams a clear enough picture of what we're solving for without over-prescribing how they should solve it. If I stay too abstract, teams might struggle to see how it connects to their work. But if I get too detailed, I risk defining a solution that doesn't account for their expertise. The goal is to give just enough of a flavor of the opportunity so they can see the value, engage with it, and want to take it forward. Personally, I adjust my communication depending on the audience. For leadership, I paint the high-level picture, why this matters strategically, what it enables, and importantly, why it's worth investing in. For cross-functional teams, I go a bit deeper, outlining the problem space, creating concept models, and defining the scope without locking into the execution details. For the teams who are executing, I I try to provide structured but flexible guidance, enough to give them somewhat of a direction, but leaving space for their expertise to shape how it actually is solved for. This approach ensures that execution happens in the right hands without losing the strategic intent. So I try to create engagement instead of dictating solutions. When you don't have direct authority, you have to make people want to engage. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is that people support what they help create. If you try to force an idea onto others, they might resist. But if you invite them into the process, if they see themselves in the work, they'll take ownership. This is something I'm working on myself all the time. Some ways I try to do this is sketch a starting point. Even if I'm not the domain expert, I put something on the table. A rough framework, a concept model, a draft direction. It's easier for people to refine and react to something than to start from nothing. I use metaphors and narratives a lot. Anyone who works with me will know that. If a problem is complex, I use storytelling or analogies to make it more tangible. This takes a lot of work to get your head around complex problems, but it's worth it when you do it right. I also try to frame it as an opportunity, not just a problem. If people see how solving this unlocks something meaningful, they might want to be involved. My role as an IC leader isn't to dictate execution. It's to create the conditions for execution to happen well. So let's talk about navigating the tension between root causes and quick wins. Another challenge in IC leadership is balancing long-term vision and short-term business needs. Organizations are often wired for quick wins, optimizing for the next quarter instead of foundational fixes. But the biggest problems are usually systemic. They require solving root causes, not just symptoms. I found that the best way to navigate this is by framing foundational work as an enabler rather than a blocker. Instead of saying, we need to fix this first before we can move forward, I try to frame it as, if we invest in this now, it accelerates us down the line. Or this work removes friction that's slowing us down. Or this sets us up for something we already want to achieve. By creating long-term fixes with near-term goals, you create pull rather than push. Here are some final thoughts. Leading as an IC isn't about waiting for permission. It's about stepping into ambiguity, shaping thinking, and making impact visible. It's about knowing when to zoom in and when to zoom out. It's about framing challenges in a way that compels action. It's about creating artifacts that scale your influence, and about striking the right balance between clarity and flexibility so that execution can happen in the right hands. If you want to lead as an IC, focus on clarity, influence, and storytelling. The way you articulate your ideas, the way you structure information, the way you make connections between different things, that's what sets you apart. We see this with sports teams all the time. People call them player coaches. You can lead from the field or the pitch or the court or wherever you're playing from. Leadership isn't about having a team. It's about shaping outcomes. And that's something that any IC can do. If you like this content and you find it relevant, please share it with some of your colleagues that might find it useful too. That will really help the channel, and I'd be very grateful for your support. See you in the next video.